Welcome to an empowering episode of Miss Poppins, The Art of Parenting. I'm your host, Nikki, founder of Miss Poppins, a revolutionary parent tech app that is empowering parents to be connected with expert coaches for real-time challenges. I'm joined today by a special guest, Leah, the Director of Education and Impact at Zigazoo, who has a rich background in education spanning over a decade. She's also a mom of three, a former teacher, and co-founder of Zigazoo, which is the world's leading social media platform for kids. As Director of Impact, she uses her experience to guide Zigazoo kids in building confidence, positivity, and creativity. She also works to guide the impact that Zigazoo can have in kids' and families' lives, and also with the larger dialogue of what's healthy, non-toxic social media that can do for our world today. Why don't we dive into it right away with Leah?
Yes, let's jump right in. Can you perhaps share the inspiration behind Zigazoo and how your role as a parent influenced its creation?
Yeah, so we all went through this period of time in COVID when kids weren't able to socialize really. And my husband and I, being educators, had plenty of fun activities for our three children to do in our home, but also recognized the one thing we couldn't give them, but that they really needed was interaction with other kids. We didn't feel comfortable and confident with the technology that was out there. So we decided to design our own based on project-based learning and a lot of the things that we had learned in the classroom about creating a positive and confidence building culture. So we started with we were creating all the challenges, and our kids were kind of our guinea pigs for enjoying the responses. And then we started to invite museums and community members and teachers, and eventually now celebrities and children's media companies and kind of big players in the space to create those challenges for the kids.
And how do you think those challenges are contributing to a child's development, or how does the business platform Zigazoo itself? You can definitely go a little bit more into what Zigazoo is about in addition to the intro I gave. Um, how does it contribute to the development of children, toddler, early childhood, adolescence, and what measures have you implemented to ensure a safe and positive environment, since you were referring to that during the COVID timeframe as well?
Yeah, so our sweet spot is ages 9 to 11, and we recognize that kids at this age really desire to interact with social technology, but we recognize that we need it to be safe, but we also need it to be expansive. So we put into place some really foundational safety tools, basically, where we have verification and authentication to make sure that everyone involved in the community is a child and has a consenting adult behind them. And we have positive only feedback mechanisms, so there is no opportunity for bullying or reducing confidence in the way that kids interact with one another. All of our content is moderated, so there's not going to be anything that's developmentally inappropriate for a child. But then when you talk about contributing to development, we really think about, what do kids need? Why do they want to be here? They want to be here to have fun, but how can we develop their creativity and really give them an opportunity to practice communication skills, digital citizenship skills, be exposed to things like entrepreneurship and like, concepts that go beyond the boundaries of what they might interact with within their own lives. So we really curate, we have a challenge and response based model, and we really curate what the challenges are. So we had Damon John come on and read his book and then ask, if you could start a business, what would your business be? So kids are getting this opportunity to stand up and say, here's me, here are my ideas, here's what I can do, and then view a group of diverse peers interacting with that same content and getting exposed to all the different ways that a kid can solve the same problem. And then the beauty is that all they can do is give a high five. They're learning how to say, like, you did that differently than me. That's awesome. I feel really safe and confident sharing my diverse perspectives and opinions, and I'm going to learn how to encourage you to do the same thing.
What is the concept or the idea behind age 9 to 11? It's such a certain specific age range. I'm sure our parent listeners would love to know why not maybe a couple years before, a couple years after? What have you notated in your journey as to why this was your target audience and how
Yeah.
it contributed?
Yeah, so you can start earlier. That is totally welcome. We are Kid Safe COPPA certified, and so we have parameters around development and security that kind of end at 12. And at that point, kids are ready to enter into another phase of digital interaction. And we're really trying to be that training ground and that safe playground for kids within this particular space, where they have guidelines and they have limited functionality that really promotes positivity and safety. And we continue to have them practice positive engagement, clear communication, how to build a community where they're at in their developmental journey. And then they will step into these other spaces, which, as we're seeing, the greater dialogue is trying to elevate regulation and understanding for how to keep those spaces safe and positive. Zigazoo is designed for that younger age group so that they can really feel safe learning how to interact in the digital and social world in ways that are confidence building for themselves as well as their peers.
Okay. And you mentioned something in terms of two key criteria we want to cover. One is digital civilians or digital citizens. I love that concept. Can you tell our parent listeners a little bit more about what that is? Why is there that civil responsibility, or there's a sense of responsibility at that early of an age? And then let's switch into entrepreneurship for the rest of our podcast, which is what all mompreneurs, fempreneurs would be loving to hear from you as well. But let's talk about that digital civilian citizenship process. I'm very curious to hear about that.
Yeah, this is a beautiful framework that's been developed to help us understand, we walk in the physical world with an understanding about like our responsibility for keeping ourselves and others safe. But the digital citizenship framework includes things like understanding your digital footprint. What is it that you put out, and how does that affect the story that you're telling about yourself? About anti-bullying, like making sure that you are keeping yourself safe and that you're also keeping others safe with positivity. Balance with screen time. And so, thinking about how to keep your mind and your body healthy. We at Zigazoo work on making sure that your screen time is active time. Zigazoo kids are very rarely sitting down. They're always singing, dancing, creating. And I think that that's worked in, but also helping families to understand how to manage this interactive time for young kids. So it's a really great framework that helps us think about developmental safety, security, health, and well-being for kids in the way that they interact in this other world. That is, it's important for them to have these skills, and understand how to navigate it. But it's also important for us to understand, we know eat your vegetables here in the real world, but what do we need to know about how they can participate in that other world in safe and healthy ways?
And same message is clear, I'm sure, in the importance of entrepreneurial education for kids, right? So let's talk about why that is important, and how does your platform foster these skills, and how do other platforms may foster these skills that you've come across your entrepreneurship journey as well?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, entrepreneurship is such an incredible kind of professional channel, right? And I feel like that word has just become so much more popular with, the current age and day. And for kids to understand, like, this is a journey that you can take as a professional. What does that mean? What does that word mean? And so I was thinking, building curiosity, like at the foundation, in my experience with my own children and with my business, the foundation of entrepreneurship is developing curiosity, building people who aren't thinking what is the right answer or what is an existing solution, but what is a problem and how can I come up with a solution, right? So that was like foundational. And I love any platform or organization, Zigazoo included, that gets kids to just keep asking questions, and my, Zigazoo is structured. It's all questions. How do you do this? What do you think about this? How would you do this differently? So I find myself asking my kids questions and they're like, is that a Zigazoo question? It's just like 10 billion questions. Tell me more. Why? What else? And I think that's up the foundation of entrepreneurship, right? But then the second step is about expression. So not just having 10 million questions, but thinking like, how do I bring these questions alive? How do I make that real? How do I try to build that thing? And then how do I, if I don't know how to do something, who else does? How do I build a team around me that can make this real? And then how do we have limitless iteration, right? I love bringing up that term iteration. My kid is like, this didn't work out. I'm done. It's finished. Nuh-uh. Like, how else could you do that? How do you stay open to trying again, to pivoting, to thinking about all the way around a problem? I think we need that as a society. We need thinkers that are creative and open to always growing, always trying, always building new solutions. And I think an individual needs that in order to be happy with their lives. How can you stay hungry and creative? And I could throw this back to you because I know in your life you saw a problem and dared. That's the biggest thing, is courage, right? You dared to not just be like, I'm just going to complain about this because it's a problem in the world. You dared to step out and say, like, I'm going to try to build that and solve that problem. So what has that journey been like for you?
It's been so amazing, and you know, it's the culture of Silicon Valley to question, to solve, and to innovate. And having grown up in that culture, that comes very naturally to us. So during COVID, when I became a mom of twin boys, and I realized how we have access to all the instant gratification and instant tools at our disposal, but at some point as a new parent, everyone's lost and isolated. That's the two most common emotions throughout your early parenthood journey. We went to solve for that. It's not something that the most fundamental element of society, which is the parent, should be feeling. They should be feeling supported and happy and educated and support. So we built MissPoppins off of that. Solution to a problem that is so fundamental in nature, not just in the US, but globally, and connect through coaching, guidance, mentorship to coaches across the board, right? Who ask questions and deliver solutions and answers. So very similar to how you have gone through your journey as an entrepreneur to solve. And there's hurdles every step of the way. You almost want to give up every year with a different challenge that you're facing. But I think under stress comes the biggest load of innovation, and it catapults you into the next phase and pivots you into the next phase of what you have been building towards something better. So not to give up, definitely innovate and solve, but not to give up and continue going towards that momentum is so important as an entrepreneur. And I think our kids see that in both of us and in every set of parents, right? Even as little kids, as infants to toddlers, the idea of questioning, not just giving them answers, is important. Our coaches tell that all the time in terms of behavior development. And I'm so glad that towards the early childhood, you are also solving for that, and you're also taking that into account. So with your extensive background in education and now at this platform, outside of the questioning, outside of the motivation, are there other experiences that have influenced the way you introduce concepts of such entrepreneurship to your children?
Yes. I mean, I think that, I learned a lot from project-based learning, which is a pedagogy where it's meaningful learning, not just a skill for a skill, but a skill to solve a problem. And so in my own children's lives, as well as in my classroom, I feel like our most powerful learning came from, the kids bringing a problem to the table and then kind of saying, like, how would you solve this problem? A silly example in our own family that was just like so on point was that our kids really wanted to go on a cruise, right? They saw this cruise ship out in the harbor and they wanted to go on it. And so we said, like, how could you engineer a situation where you could earn what it would take to have that experience? You want that. How could you make that happen? And so they designed a product. They designed these like little coasters they made out of wood. They designed and they iterated and they compiled this little product that they made, and they sold it at like a kids craft fair to earn the money to have this opportunity that they wanted to have. And we were laughing because we were like, if they just asked us that and it was up to us, we'd been like, no,
Different
that's not
generation.
our vacation. But because we let them design the journey and learn what it took to come up with pricing, come up with marketing, come up with the actual product so that it worked, and test different, materials that wouldn't melt when you put a coffee cup on them. Like that whole journey of problem solving something they cared about was a perfect textbook example of what we should let our kids do. You know what I mean? Instead of scrambling to try to make sure they understand the concept of money, let them come up with a process where they interact with the market and earning money. You know what I mean? So it matters to them. And so I just feel like, as parents, it's hard. You get really busy. I have 3 kids. I feel like there are, for every one question, I can let them really metamorphosize into something big that takes over our whole life like that. There are a million more that have to be like, okay, like we have to get to school, sit down, eat your dinner. But I feel like if as parents, we can stop for one of those questions and really let a kid watch it come alive, what they learn from the success of that, as well as from the failures in that, as you were describing, is the entrepreneurial journey. And then they're empowered next time to be like, to stop in their tracks and say, I have some ideas about how I could really get my hands on this, instead of just letting this question kind of blow away. And I think really respecting that is incredibly powerful. And so, on Zigazoo, we have a whole group of kids that are creators who have the opportunity to ask other kids questions. And I think letting every kid feel like they're a leader and that what they're curious about is worth putting out into the world, and surrounding it with support from their peers, is just a really important step in that confidence and curiosity.
You talked about being a mom and teaching all of these wonderful lessons to your kids. How is it to be a mompreneur and try to balance the harmony between work and life? That is the daily struggle for a lot of working moms. I think our generation moms and dads' biggest fear that I see underlying, which is not really blatantly blurted out, but I think there's an underlying fear of perfection or not messing up the kids because of lack of control with whatever is outside available into the world. And I'm so glad you're creating a more positive controlled platform, but that's not always the case, right? So regardless, what measures have you put in to have a wonderful work-life balance as a mompreneur? And what are also some specific moments or practices from your career that you've incorporated into teaching your kids the value of entrepreneurship, work-life balance, mompreneurship in general?
Yeah, it's a work in progress, as you know. Like I like you, like that perfect work-life balance. Like, do we ever have that? But I feel like when I tried to my husband is the CEO of this company, so we're both in it. We're all in it. The kids are in it. We're all part of it. And I think I try to separate it into, like, when I think about our days, our weeks, our months, and how we structure them, I try to put it into kind of 3 buckets. There is like just work time. Like right now, I made sure everybody's where they need to go, everybody's cared for, and I need to be focusing, right? And then there's just parenting time. Like you really need, even when you feel like there's always more to do, when you run your own company, there is always more to do. You're never done. But if you carve out buckets that are like, this is just playtime, this is just kid time, and make sure that happens every day. This is just for you. I'm not going to be emailing and talking to you. I'm just talking to you. But then there's blended time. And I think at first I felt kind of guilty about that. Like I'm working right now and the kids are running around and I'm not fully in either of those worlds, but we slowly as a family have learned how to work through, make that a positive thing, make that a like, they understand I'm working and they might pop in. Like my oldest son will come on my lap during Zigazoo meetings and the whole team knows him and he comes with ideas because he uses the product. And so he knows he can say like, hey guys, I really think you should consider this. And they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. And they listen to him sometimes, like sometimes involving them, letting them kind of buzz around while I'm working, but also involving them. And if your company is kid-centered, that's amazing. My kids know that they're like active participants in developing this product. I listen to their ideas and they use it. But even if our company weren't about kids, they letting them feel like they have their hands in it, like watching it. And they know there are busy seasons for mommy and daddy, and this is why we're traveling. This is this and this. And they like have this like insider's view of what it looks like to have parents creating something, and we're really vocal about it. And so they will grow up knowing like this is what that looks like. This is what venture capitalism is. This is what, this is what product testing is. Like they've learned all those things because we just are doing it around them all the time.
Absolutely. And I think one should never stop learning, never stop growing. And I'm so glad you and your husband have taken the initiative to put a different format of social media and learning out in the real world. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights with us today, Leah. Thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to Zigazoo growing leaps and bounds and momentum to truly make a difference in kids learning and entrepreneurship as well.
Thank you. And I'm so excited to have discovered MissPoppins and to share it with our community, because we all know that we could use advice on this journey, and it's great to be able to find really qualified and wonderful professionals to support us as we try to raise kids. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leah. Thanks for being here.
Today's conversation with Leah has illuminated the transformative power of innovative education and parenting solutions. The dedication to enhancing children's development and supporting parents reflects a profound commitment to the future of our families and communities. As we conclude, we're inspired by the journeys of our guests, especially Leah, and the impactful work that they're doing. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time as we continue to explore the art and science of parenting with confidence and love. I'm your host, Nicky Rishi, empowered by MissPoppins, the Art of Parenting.